to sleepNova, where science becomes a lullaby tonight. Well, explore something beautiful. Let your mind wander and your body rest. She didn't even notice when it started. The fading, the soft, slow disappearing of things she once felt deeply. The music she used to love now sounded like background noise. The colors of the world had dimmed not black and white, but muted, like someone had turned the volume down on life, and she didn't know how to turn it back up. She smiled when she was supposed to, laughed when it was polite, answered texts with emojis and exclamation points. But inside stillness, not the peaceful kind, the empty kind. Sometimes, Shed stare at the ceiling for hours, not thinking, not crying, not even bored, just there, just existing. Friends would ask, "Are you okay?" And Shed say, "Yeah, just tired." But it wasn't tired. It was something else, something deeper, quieter, heavier. A fog that curled around her heart, soft and soundless, making it hard to feel much of anything at all. She wasn't sad. Not exactly. She wasn't angry or afraid. She was numb. And no one saw it. Not because they didn't care, but because she had become an expert at hiding it. She didn't want to burden anyone, didn't want to explain what she couldn't even name. So she carried on, brushing her hair, answering emails, cooking dinner, smiling in photos, all while something inside her quietly whispered, "You're not really here." But tonight, in this quiet space, with nothing to perform, nowhere to be, no one watching, she finally says it, even just to herself. "I feel nothing." And it doesn't sound like failure. It doesn't sound broken. It just is. A moment of honesty. A truth she can sit with. Because sometimes healing begins not with fixing, but with simply naming the feeling you wish you could feel. She lays back now, not to escape, but to listen, to soften, to breathe, to begin. Let her rest here for a moment, in stillness, in truth. This is not the end, it's the quiet beginning of coming back to life. Unexpectedly, she was folding laundry. A quiet, ordinary task, hands moving, mind drifting. And then, like a thread pulled loose, a sound found her. A song, just a few notes at first. Soft, distant, familiar. She paused. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even playing in the room. It was inside her. A melody she hadn't heard in years, maybe since childhood, maybe from some dream, but it stirred something. She didn't know the name, couldn't place the moment, but her chest tightened just slightly. A feeling small, delicate, like a match striking in the dark. And suddenly, she remembered something else. A scent warm vanilla from her grandmother's house. A hallway lit by sunlight, curtains dancing in slow motion. She saw her younger self barefoot, laughing, chasing nothing and everything at once. Tears didn't come. She didn't collapse. She didn't feel overwhelmed. She just felt touched. A whisper of something real, something buried, but not lost. She followed the feeling like you follow the wind gently, without forcing it. More memories surfaced, not dramatic ones, just textures of old comfort, the warmth of a sunlit kitchen, the soft scratch of a wool blanket, the glow of a birthday candle, the hum of a night fan. These weren't loud moments. They were quiet, but alive. She sat down, not to grieve, not to analyze, but to remember. Because memory, she realized, was not about the past. It was about returning to the parts of herself she never meant to forget. The girl who used to dance in her room, the one who kept journals and glitter pens, the one who believed everything meant something. And maybe that girl still lived inside her, waiting, sleeping, but still there. She placed her hand on her chest, not dramatic, not performative, just present. The numbness wasn't gone, but something had shifted. A breeze through the window, a spark in the stillness, and maybe that was enough for now. Sometimes healing begins not with joy, but with remembering who you were before the world made you forget how to feel. She didn't even notice it at first. But one afternoon, while sipping tea, her hands wrapped around the warm ceramic, and she realized she could feel the heat. Really feel it, not just with her skin, but in a way that made her aware of it. It wasn't extraordinary. It didn't come with tears or fireworks, just a soft noticing, a quiet, delicate return. Later, she let her feet touch the floor, barefoot, cool tile under warm toes. The sensation surprised her. Shed walked this same path for months, but today she felt the ground. And then came the breeze. By the open window, a current of air swept across her face and neck and collarbone. It gave her goosebumps. She laughed. A real laugh, small but true. Because for a second, her body remembered it was alive. She tried more, not in a desperate way, but with curiosity. She ran her fingers along soft fabric, touched the petals of a flower, closed her eyes, and simply breathed in lavender oil. And with each breath, each pause, each sensation, she returned. Returned to the body that had carried her, even while her heart forgot how to live inside it. She started lighting candles again, not for anyone else, just to see the flame dance, just to smell warmth in the room. She turned off her phone, turned on music, laid on the floor, and felt her spine meet gravity. She didn't feel joy exactly, not yet, but she felt something, a shimmer, a pulse, a whisper beneath her skin that said, "I'm still here." She didn't need to explain it, didn't need to share it. This moment was just hers. And in it, she began to believe that her body never forgot her. It had just been waiting for her to come back home. Healing is not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet rediscovery of warmth on your skin. And sometimes that's enough to begin again. She didn't cry right away. Not when the memories returned. Not when her body began to feel again. Not even when she finally said out loud, "I feel empty." The tears didn't come in a wave. They arrived like morning fog. Quiet, unexpected, unapologetic. It happened on a Tuesday. She was washing dishes, watching the water run, steam rising to the ceiling when suddenly a lump formed in her throat. No warning, no sad thought, just a tightness. And then moisture in her eyes, a blink, a breath, and then a single tear. She paused. Held the edge of the sink, closed her eyes. There was no sobbing, no collapsing to the floor, just a release. As if her body had waited patiently for the day she'd be safe enough to feel. She didn't try to stop it. She didn't try to name it. She let it be. Sadness, relief, gratitude. It didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long time she felt. That night, she lit a candle again. She sat on the floor in her softest sweater, wrapped in a blanket, cradled by quiet. She whispered things to no one in particular. "I missed you. I'm sorry I disappeared. I don't know how to come back, but I want to." And in the stillness, there was no judgment, no rush, no pressure to be healed by mourning. There was just presence. Emotions came slowly. Some were sharp, like the sting of disappointment. Some were warm, like the ache of nostalgia. Some were confusing, but none of them were wrong. She didn't try to fix them. She didn't shame herself for them. She just held space, like holding a child who needs to cry. She became her own comfort, not because she wanted to be strong, but because, for the first time, she realized she could. Real healing doesn't always feel beautiful. Sometimes it's heavy, but the fact that you can feel at all means the frost is melting, and that is a miracle in itself. She didn't make an announcement. There was no "I am back" post, no grand return to the world. It started with a walk, early morning, sky still blushing with hints of pink and lavender, streets quiet, birdsong tentative and delicate. She stepped outside like someone testing water, unsure if it would be cold, but hopeful it might be warm. The air touched her face. She breathed it in deeply, not out of habit, but with intention. I am here, she thought, not just physically, but fully. She waved at a neighbor. She smiled at a passing dog. She paused at a tree just beginning to bloom and let her fingers brush against its new leaves. Nothing dramatic, but everything real. Later that week, she replied to a friend's message, not with an apology for being distant, not with a story about where she'd been, just, "Hey, I've been quiet, but I am thinking of you. Want to go for tea sometime?" The reply came quickly, simple, warm. I'd love that. She felt her chest loosen. Fear of being too distant, too late, too gone began to fade. She was still welcome, still loved, still here. That night, she played music, the kind that made her sway without realizing it. She lit a string of lights across her wall. She cooked dinner for herself with care. She didn't do it for show. She did it because something inside her wanted light again, wanted color, wanted presence. She began writing again. Little journal entries, not deep reflections, just notes like, "I liked the sky today. The tea tasted like home. I smiled without forcing it." She wasn't trying to fix herself anymore. She wasn't performing healing. She was living it, not every day, not all at once, but enough. Enough to believe that life had space for her. Enough to see that even the softest parts of her were still strong. Enough to trust that she could return not as who she was, but as who she was becoming. Reconnection doesn't mean you have to be loud again. Sometimes it means simply saying, "I am still here, and I am ready to begin again." There was no final moment, no fireworks, no clear line between before and after. Healing didn't arrive like a storm passing. It came in waves, small, quiet, steady. And then one evening, she looked at herself in the mirror, not to check, not to fix, not to judge, but just to see. And what she saw was someone real, not perfect, not always confident, but real, soft eyes, a tired smile, skin touched by time and experience, and behind all that, a heart that had been through enough to forget how to feel and brave enough to try again anyway. She no longer chased the highs. She no longer feared the lows. She welcomed peace not as a destination, but as a companion who showed up whenever she slowed down enough to notice. She understood now. She was never broken. She had only been quiet. She had only needed space and time and safety. And now she could breathe fully again, feel fully again, live fully again. She laid down under soft blankets, lights dim, windows open just enough to let the night air sing. She didn't need answers tonight, didn't need plans. She was no longer fighting sleep. She was welcoming it, like a friend, like a return, like home. As her breath slowed and the world blurred gently around her, she whispered just once into the dark, "I remember now." And in that remembering, she finally rested, completely, gently, fully. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a whole story, softly unfolding, and you are allowed to rest.